Today I'm going to have a conversation with St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist Ben Fredrickson about the many lies of Los Angeles Rams owner Stan Kroenke, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. And today, I'm going to have a conversation with St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist Ben Fredrickson, who has been bringing fire about the many lies of Stan Kroenke and the really just egregious way in which the St. Louis Rams were moved to LA after, well, I'll get into it with him. Let's just take a listen. So what I want to do was throw some quotes at you, play truth or lie with Stan Kroenke, and basically dunk on this owner and this team, and you've just been bringing flame for the last 2 weeks about this, and I'm having so much fun with it. So are you cool with that?
Yeah, it sounds good.
All right, bro. Let's get into it. I'm gonna read you a quote, and then I want you to tell me what your first reaction to it is. This is gonna be awesome.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
All right. This is Stan Kroenke. I'm going to attempt to do everything I can to keep the Rams in St. Louis, just as I did everything that I could do to bring the team to St. Louis in 1995. I believe my actions speak for themselves.
Oh yeah, that's the all-timer. That's one of the few interviews Stan Kroenke did with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch during his time as the owner of the Rams. And for folks who aren't familiar with how it happened, RJ, Stan Kroenke basically used right of last refusal to block Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, from buying the Rams. And so he stepped in at the last moment, became the majority owner. And even from that day, there were fears that he might one day try to lead the team back to Los Angeles. And this was after, badgering him for an answer on this question. Former Post-Dispatch columnist Bernie Miklasz got an interview, and Stan was almost insulted that the question even came up. Why would he even consider eventually moving the team back to Los Angeles? And he was from Missouri, and there's no way he would lead the team there to lead it out. And years go by, and sure enough, that's exactly what he had in mind, even to the point that he was, shopping for land and finding the stadium site that the LA Stadium will now be on in Inglewood, while he was having his spokesman Keviwn Demoff tell everybody that he was not looking for a football stadium site. It's hard to wrap your brain around, but that's the quote that we keep coming back to from 2010 that said it all before it was even in motion.
And what's shocking to me is how he doubled down on all this stuff all the time. Like, I'm going to read you this quote, and I'm sure it's just, I'm going to ask you about how St. Louis fans are dealing, but our goal is to build a winning organization on and off the field in St. Louis, and that continues to be the goal for the next year, 3 years, 10 years, 20 years. He said that in 2012, bro.
Yeah, that's Keviwn Demoff. Yeah, that's the extension of Stan Kroenke. He is basically, when Stan realized that he probably shouldn't be saying these things, he just asked his right hand Keviwn Demoff to say him for him.
Take these bullets.
And Kevin just took the bullets for him. And that was tough, man. And he would say even things more convincing than that when he met with fans at fan events. And you could even go back, and some people have, like, to his Twitter mentions from those years and his responses to fans who asked questions about it. I mean, literally lying to their faces with a smile. And if you line that up, those comments, this is the fascinating thing. If you line the comments up with the interview that Stan Kroenke and Keviwn Demoff gave the Los Angeles Times after the relocation was sealed, and there was that plane ride to Los Angeles where the LA Times was on the plane with Kroenke and Demoff, and they're basically gloating about, getting what they wanted and being able to move the team. And it wasn't just enough that they could say they're happy about being in LA. I mean, look, man, you're in Oklahoma, I'm in St. Louis. We know that a lot of people around would rather be in LA. I get it.
Amen.
But they couldn't just do that. They had to gloat about leaving St. Louis. And that's actually some of those comments, the timeline that was laid out in that interview is going to come up in the court case that is being pursued here in St. Louis against the league and the Rams. because there are direct conflict of information based off the public statements made by the Rams here in St. Louis and what was actually going on in that time per their quotes in the Los Angeles Times. So the biggest thing the relocation lawsuit seeks to answer here in St. Louis is can they get to discovery? Can they get these guys a deposition? Can they get them under oath? Because there's a lot of information that would come out then that hasn't been out previously.
Well, first, thanks for correcting me that's Demoff and not Kroenke. But also, one of the things that I'm looking in, right? Obviously, I'm not in the middle of it. I'm fascinated by all of this because I, for one, just think that owners, by and large, are bad people. They did not get to be billionaires by being great sports people. But that's another thing. What I didn't know was that St. Louis was prepared to pony up to give him the stadium that he wanted to keep the team, because the narrative is, hey, they didn't want to pay for a stadium, which, we can all talk about why that no city should ever pay for a stadium, but that they were willing to try to give him what he wanted, and he still dipped on them. Like, that to me is egregious, and I'm an Arsenal fan, right? So he owns my team too, and I'm just going, oh my God, how are we gonna hold these guys accountable? And you've just mentioned the suit that's being filed or has been filed. So just how do you deal with that when somebody just keeps telling you no to your face after you're trying to give them everything they want?
Yeah, and that's why St. Louis fans are so upset. It's one thing to lose the team, but it's mostly how. The league said, look, the relocation guidelines matter. If you follow this process and give a good faith effort to keep your team, it's going to be hard for your team to move. That did not turn out to be the case. There were town hall meetings that turned out to be, absolutely nothing, meant nothing. There was the most frustrating thing about this week is to see some of the sports coverage that's come out and said, St. Louis was not a viable option. It made no effort to keep the team, which is just factually incorrect. One of the articles specifically mentioned unmotivated politicians. Well, in reality, the governor of Missouri, Jay Nixon at the time, who's a huge sports fan, created a task force to try to keep the Rams in St. Louis. When it became clear that Stan Kroenke was going to use a very regrettable clause in the current lease that he had at the Edward Jones Dome, there was a task force created to try to come up with a solution. And that task force spent more than $16 million creating a riverfront stadium proposal that would have been a more than $1 billion stadium that included more than $400 million in public funding from the city and the state. Now, you can have a very, very good discussion about whether that was even a good idea, but that's what was going to be on the table. Riverfront stadium, $1+ billion with more than $400 million in public funding between the city and the state. That included, that's not even to mention, a naming rights deal with National Car Rental. They were going to put their name on the stadium for, and I don't have the number right in front of it, it was a staggering amount of money that would have been one of the most competitive naming right deals in all of NFL. So to say that St. Louis didn't try it's just not accurate based on any sense of the word. I mean, it's factually erroneous to say that. This is the biggest, effort of public money left behind by the NFL in its history, to go to a place that had no public money on the table. Stan Kroenke foot the bill for the massive expenditure at the stadium in Inglewood. And I think here's my message to other NFL cities is when the NFL tries to come rattle your cage, and it will, I mean, it's going to be wanting to expand to Europe. It's going to be wanting to expand to Mexico. It's going to be wanting to update these stadiums that are now getting older and older. Places like St. Louis that are not, just going to be flocked to by millionaires like Los Angeles is, they should ask themselves if it's worth handing over public money for a league that has shown a precedent of leaving a significant amount of public money on a table to go to a place that's offering none. There were some owners who were concerned about that precedent, and that was why the initial vote to move the Rams didn't pass. But you'll remember what happened. The initial vote didn't pass. Jerry Jones shut the doors, made the ballot secret, and all of a sudden the vote was overwhelmingly in Stan Kroenke's favor. And that's the best definition of how the league owners works. They will get what they want, whether they have to break their own rules or not.
Talking with St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist Ben Fredrickson. You should follow him on Twitter at Ben_Fred. Known Ben since he was back at Missouri, and he's freezed his butt off in Wyoming, among other places, and he's doing outstanding work. I wanted to just we're playing truth or lie, and it's been a lot of lies with Stan Kroenke. But as a St. Louis fan, right, and you are a fan, right? We all grew up as fans. How do you feel about the Super Bowl Sunday? Obviously you're not going to be pulling for the Rams, right?
Well, it's hard for St. Louisans. It's really the Super Bowl from hell because, there's significant evidence that the Rams, were cheated against in a Super Bowl by the Patriots that started that legacy. Look, we'll never know beyond a reasonable doubt. The NFL ruined the tapes, right?
Right.
But that Spygate stuff, that was going on during that Super Bowl that the Rams lost. And there's all kinds of questions you could ask. If the Rams would have won that Super Bowl against the Patriots, maybe the Patriots dynasty is not what it is today. Maybe the Rams are still here in St. Louis. The Rams, St. Louis has no love for Bill Belichick and the Patriots in New England. And obviously, it's such a complicated thing with the Rams. You like the players still. Some of those guys have been great. Roger Saffold made a point to thank Rams fans after they went to the Super Bowl. Todd Gurley, when he won Rookie of the Year, thanked St. Louis fans. So I think there are a lot of people who want to see the players do well. But I never thought I'd say this, but I think St. Louis, if it's paying attention, has to be rooting for the Patriots. But I've talked to a lot of folks who are simply tuning out. I don't have plans to watch the game on Sunday. Not that it's some big, I'm not going to stick it to the man. I know they're going to be just fine without my eyeballs on the screen. But for me, and I think a lot of folks here in St. Louis, it's just become too hard to watch the games and ignore what we know. It's kind of like I've compared it to when you're a little kid and you find out professional wrestling is fake. Hope I'm not spoiling Santa for anybody on the video here, but when you find out professional wrestling is fake, you can't really watch it the same. You might enjoy it, but you also know, you know too much, and that's how I feel when I watch the league. Now, not that it's rigged, although people. You just kind of see behind the scene too much. It's Wizard of Oz. You know how evil the guy behind the curtain is, and it's just hard to enjoy it. So I've not watched one full game this year. It's the first time in my life, and I'll be honest, I haven't fallen apart because of it. I mean, I see the big plays on Twitter, and it's impossible to avoid them, but I haven't once said, man, I wish I watched NFL on Sunday. And I think a lot of folks in St. Louis feel the same way.
Right. Well, and this is kind of a point that I was making by and large. I mean, I'm a football fan, and obviously this is a football channel. But I'm 31. How old are you, Ben?
I'm 20, almost 29.
Right? So, this has an effect going forward. These are the kinds of things that you hold on to. Like I tell people all the time, millennials don't necessarily buy into the housing market because, well, it crashed around us while we were going through college, and getting these jobs that everybody's saying that we have now, right? Because we're coming out of a great recession into an economic boom. These things play out. I mean, some of us are becoming NBA fans. Some of us are becoming soccer fans. Some of us are actually beginning to watch baseball again. All of these things are of a piece. And the last part that I wanted to hit on that I thought you made a very good point of in one of your columns is, every time you mention Sean McVay as a mastermind at 33, remember that Kroenke also hired Jeff Fisher. What's going on? Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Every time you say, because that's the angel getting its wings for me. Every time you say Sean McVay is awesome, remember, Jeff Fisher was the guy in LA.
Well, yeah, and he was quickly cast aside as soon as they moved. Go figure. They brought him back time and time again and showed unprecedented loyalty to him in St. Louis when they didn't care much about winning. The attendance numbers in the Jeff Fisher era are really staggering considering the amount of support Rams fans did show in St. Louis to a team that was usually terrible. And even more concerning is that he wasn't even the worst of the Rams coaches that worked for the Rams under Kroenke. So there's a whole laundry list of ways the Rams were not competitive here in St. Louis that changed when they got to Los Angeles. And your point about football in general is fascinating to me because I read these stories about participation rates declining in youth leagues and high schools. That's especially been true in the St. Louis area, perhaps as a fallout from some of the Rams stuff. And I wonder, does it get to the point where it's like boxing, where if I played the game and I would have questions about letting my I don't have children, but letting my children play. And I think when you're to that point, then you should be worried about the pipeline of players. If talented athletes are starting to do other things or their parents aren't letting them play, then that's eventually going to grow up and have an effect. And the NFL says it's not worried about it, but I think it probably should be.
Absolutely. This is Ben Fredrickson. He's of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, where he writes a column there. You can also catch him on 550 KTRS in St. Louis, talking on the radio. Ben, thanks, dude.
Yeah, you bet, RJ. Anytime. It's always great to catch up with you. Keep doing your thing, and keep up the great work. It's been awesome to see the success with the book and everything else. So keep doing your thing, and I'll see you down the road at some point.
All right, brother. I appreciate you.
Sounds good, man. See you.
Bye.